All right, all right. How is everyone doing this Friday? We got a little bit of an echo. Let me do that. Okay. All right. So, hope everyone's Friday was wonderful. I hope y'all got some things done. I hope you were very productive today. As you probably noticed, I have been missing for a little while. I'd like to apologize for that first, but now let me make some things clear, just to do a little bit of housekeeping. There were some changes that had to be made. We made those changes and we're back. And as I mentioned before in our other video, we don't have any plans of stopping. Maybe we're delayed just a little bit, but we're going to come right back. So now, what is the topic for tonight? And I think this is a good topic because there have been a lot of questions in regards to this particular name, the King gene. So am I the King gene? Without a doubt, I can tell you that I am not. Although I work every day to be a part of the group that I'm identifying here. So what is the King gene? Well, let's break those two words down, that phrase. That's the title of the podcast, King and Gene. First of all, let's look at the word king. When you think about an individual who's a king, what automatically comes to mind? Maybe there's a regal quality that you think about. Maybe there's majesty. Maybe you think of someone who's a leader. That's what I seek to capture in that name. Well, what about genes? When you think about genes, you think about genetics. You think about heredity. You think about things that are passed down from a parent to a child that determine certain characteristics of that child. So put together simply, the King gene is a podcast that's devoted to helping the male of the species. I'm sorry, sisters, but this is devoted to the brothers. It's devoted to helping the brothers among us to reach their full potential. And they'll do that by practicing positive masculinity. Now, that's something that I really, really cherish. And that's a subject that I talk about a lot because I've seen how positive masculinity, if implemented in the right way, can have an effect on everyone around you. Individuals will come to admire your abilities. They'll come to admire the way that you handle yourself. They'll come to admire the results that you gain because of the fact that you're reaching toward manhood. So for my little brothers out there, a lot of this information that I'm imparting is especially for you. I want to make sure that in every situation, you're able to handle yourself. And so that's the purpose of this podcast. And you'll notice that I've been picking segments. And those segments have been geared toward helping you to understand what you need to avoid, but then at the same time, what should you actively look for? Because there is no decision that you can make that will not affect your future. Everything you decide to do will affect your future in some way. And so the premise is that we want to make the wisest decisions that we possibly can so that the outcome is the best that it possibly can be. Okay? Now, let's keep going. One of the main things that we will focus on is the next topic. They're the AD mentality. And of course, AD is an acronym. If you looked at some of the first videos that I did, even though I know that they were probably difficult to make it through, you got the sense of what it was that the AD mentality actually means. As you mentioned, it's an acronym. It stands for accountability, discipline, determination. And so those three qualities, in my lifetime, I feel that they are invaluable because accountability has to do with responsibility and reliability all mixed together. Then you have discipline, which takes on two forms. It takes on the ability to discipline oneself, to employ self-control, to keep oneself from going on a course that could lead to disaster, while at the same time pushing you to go in a direction that will help you to be successful in the future. And then, of course, determination, that's something that's always needed. Because if you find yourself on the right course, if you find yourself doing things that are positive and they're motivated by a positive or mindset, then you need determination to keep going, because you're going to run into individuals who are not positive. You're going to run into individuals who are going to make it their goal to keep you from becoming who you know you can be. And so determination is necessary in that. And so those three together, that ad mentality, is a mentality, as I mentioned, that I found that has really helped me in my lifetime. Because you don't see a whole lot of people taking accountability for the things that they do. And you don't see a whole lot of people looking at situations and trying to assess what they are accountable for. And see, that calls for responsibility. And in my opinion, the best thing that a man could ever be introduced to is responsibility. What's required of you in a situation to make this situation turn out right? As men, by nature, we are builders. We're individuals who we protect, we provide, and we teach. So all three of those things come into account when you talk about accountability, because you're seeking to understand what it is as a man that you owe, what it is that you must give in order to get the conclusion or the results that you want. And so I think that's pivotal when it comes to manhood, or as I refer to it quite a bit in this podcast, positive masculinity. So now, after we've talked about the ad mentality, what is the intended impact? What is it that I want to accomplish with this particular podcast? Well, the intent, first of all, let me say that this is a podcast for men and by men. And so we'll be dealing with issues that affect men, but at the same time, we'll be looking at ways that as men, we can do better. We can move further in becoming the best version of ourselves. Now, when you hear that phrase, the best version of ourselves, there are many content creators on YouTube that use that same particular phrase. And it's impactful, because that's what we want to become. Because the better we become, the better we can assist those around us. I see everyone benefits, all of society benefits when it's our determination to become the best versions of ourselves. And so that entails sometimes emotional healing, healing from trauma. Sometimes it involves being able to recognize that more work needs to be done as far as finances are concerned. Maybe more education needs to be taken up. And so the whole gamut of opportunities that lie before an individual is explored, because we need to become, as I mentioned, the best version of ourselves. And that's one of the things that I'm proud of. In the videos in my catalog, you'll see that that's what I'm pushing. I'm pushing individuals exploring their options and finding the best options for them, finding their purpose, being on their purpose, and then growing as individuals to become the best version of themselves. Now, one of the things too, I think is very impactful, and we'll go into it toward the end of the podcast, because I'm not going to hold you long tonight. Actually, I'm not going to hold you long, because I have a prior engagement. I have a brother named CJ Kyles, and I'll be guest appearing on one of his shows. But in the meantime, before we do that, the impact, let's go back to that. The impact, the intended impact is that individuals can see what way they need to go. Now, because we're all men, we're all adults, it's not something that I would like to do to try to force an individual to have a certain opinion. I'm not trying to force my opinion on anyone. But what I am doing is showing that through experience, these are the things that have worked for me. And maybe, just maybe, through some of the things that have worked for me, you will be able to find something that you can employ that will work for you. I think the more counselors that an individual has, the more mentors, the more individuals who are wise around him, then the better the result will be. Because you always have someone that you can confide in and talk to, get a better understanding, get a different perspective. And so it really helps you to make decisions that are well-rounded. But not only that, it helps you to become a more well-rounded person. That is the intended impact of the podcast. All positive, even though there will be some aspects that we will consider that are negative. We will be discussing how to deal with those negative aspects in a positive way. Okay? Now, what can you expect? What can you expect? When you watch one of my videos, what can you expect from the content that I'll be bringing to you? Well, in all things, I try to be as balanced as I possibly can be. And so, in being balanced, it would mean that an individual would have to look at all sides of the situation. Now, given there are some video segments that we're going to look at where the person in question is clearly out of line. That's true. But then at the same time, the individuals around that person, what accountability do they share, if any? We're going to look at that also. So balance is one of the things that you'll get from the podcast. But then also, as we mentioned, we're looking for positivity. Because now, if it is my goal to center on negativity, and every time you tune into one of my segments, it's nothing but negativity, how does that help you? How does that assist you? How is that constructive to your life? It isn't, and it never will be. Even though it might have emotional content, some content creators, they are fixated on the negative aspects of certain genders or the negative aspects of certain ethnicities. That's not what we do here. And as long as this is my podcast, then we won't do that. We're going to focus on the issues that need to be tackled. We're going to focus on mindsets that need to be changed. And in the process, hopefully, we'll find something that benefits you. Okay? So now, as I mentioned, the ADD mentality, accountability, discipline, and determination. What I wanted to highlight in regards to that mentality is that it has an upbuilding effect on those around you also. Now, do I have proof of that? Let's see if I can bring up the images that I have here. This is actually from one of my subscribers. I made a video, and the video dealt with misandry, or the strong dislike or hatred of men. And the subscriber was so moved by the explanation that was given that he had to get in contact with me. So let's see if we can get these images up and find out what it was that he was trying to tell us. Okay, so the first image, as you can see on the screen, this is what he said. Very good video. I personally have been dealing with a lot of toxic behavior from females where I felt really incapable of saying something without tons of people getting on my back. This might come in to be a bit too personal, but I don't really have any friends of my age or that I see a lot. There are people that are very healthy to me, I meet, but it is sometime in between, and having to deal with this sort of stuff is really hard considering how socially influenced it is, especially on Twitter or so. Anyways, amazing videos. Your points are really well explained and detailed, and so he subscribed. So what did I get from that particular comment? This is a young person. And so because this is a young person, I am especially careful in what I say. I have to be especially careful in how I handle this particular situation. Because as I mentioned, it's my goal to impart something good, something positive. So what was my response to the young man? Let's see. So I started off by telling him adversity breeds leaders. So take your fair share, my brother. You will come out of it stronger and with greater moral fiber. Commit to becoming the best version of yourself. Take responsibility to make your life phenomenal. When you finally succeed, the thought of the negative people you have encountered will be a faint and distant memory. You have the King gene within you. You only have to work for it to manifest. I have faith in you. So as you notice, the thrust of what I said to him was positive. Because here's a young man, and I'm going to be honest with you. When I first saw his comment, I couldn't help but to think about the young men that have committed suicide. the young men who are on the edge of taking their own lives because of not being socially acceptable. He wasn't going to come to me as an older man. He wasn't going to come to me and experience that same social awkwardness or rejection. And so what I encouraged him to do was to take his part in adversity. Now, why did I say that? Because adversity, especially for men, young men, but especially for adults, is part of life. It's going to be unexpected. It's going to come upon you in a way that you can't be prepared for. But here's the thing. If at an early age, you make it your determination to meet adversity head on, take responsibility for the things that you can take responsibility for, work on the things that you can, and then the rest of it will work itself out. And so that's what I'm encouraging him to do. Don't run from the adversity. Face it head on, because you lay the pattern for yourself. If you run from adversity at an early age, that's what you'll do the rest of your life. You'll run from it. When the problem manifests itself, you don't know anything else but to run. And so that's why it's necessary for me to tell this young man that he needed to face adversity, because adversity breeds leaders. Anyone who is a leader, or anyone who has read about leaders in the past, there was always adversity involved in taking the lead. And so he would be benefited by his endeavor to take on adversity. The benefits are clear. I mentioned in the last part of the reply that when he is successful, because usually individuals who have taken adversity head on, the after effects is success. Because if nothing can stop you, eventually you're going to get to your destination. And so that's what I wanted to emphasize to him. Forget about everything that's going on now as a young man. Forget about the way that people respond to you. Forget about what they say about you. None of those things matter, because in a few years, you won't see those people again ever in life. The goal is to become the best version of yourself. And that's only going to happen through adversity. It reminds me of a proverb. When you take gold or any other precious metal, the way that you refine it is that you apply fire to it. You heat it up. And then you take some lye and throw it across that particular metal, and all the impurities from that metal float to the top. You're smelting. But the only way that that particular precious metal becomes the best version of itself is if you apply adversity to it, if you heat it up. And then those adversities come to the top. And then you can skim them right off. So now, in my opinion, when I think about becoming the best version of myself, that's what I think about. I think about being tested by fire, having adversity come upon me, meeting that adversity head on, benefiting from the fact that I will not give in, and then moving forward. And so that's what it was that I espoused to him. So what was his reply? Let's see. Now notice this. Everyone calling me King Gene, but actually my name is Marcus. But I guess it's interchangeable now. But notice what it says. It says, at the King Gene. He said, man, you made my whole week with that. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I really appreciate your attitude and advice, and I will take it with me. Again, sincerely, thank you so much for the kindness, empathy, and authenticity. You're the best. So what did I get from that? Am I happy about the outcome? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because see, I don't know. I don't know the young man personally. I don't know what it is that he's going through. I don't know his home situation. I don't know his school situation. I don't know him. I don't. But does that mean that I can't take his feelings into consideration? That I can't employ accountability in this particular situation? Even though I don't know him, what do I owe him? He's tuned into my podcast. He's benefited from the information that I've given to him, right? And so I owe it to him. Even if there are individuals in the audience that might disagree, I take it upon myself. I owe him positivity. I owe him a listening ear. I owe him words of encouragement. Because you got to understand the world that we live in is a harsh world. It's one where there are a lot of individuals who go and they are misunderstood. For whatever reason, we as humans, we within the first 7 seconds of meeting an individual, we establish how we're going to treat them. And from then on, that's what we do. From their first impression of those individuals, we make a leap. The person could be somebody totally different. But because of those first 7 seconds, our mind is programmed to make that first impression, and that impression is a lasting one. So I want my first impression with him to be one where I am espousing positivity. I'm telling him that he can make it. I'm telling him don't give up. I'm telling him don't give in. I'm telling him don't give out. As we mentioned now, this is a podcast that's for men by men. Anybody who wants to watch, I'm thankful for the subscribers, but my target audience is young men and adults, because in this world, there's not a lot of admiration, there's not a lot of commendation that's given to individuals, especially individuals who are working hard to become something better. And I want to change that. I want to be a part of a movement where we acknowledge the good that we see in each other. We promote the good that we see in each other. And that is the whole basis of the King Gene podcast. Was that enough? I know I got a little overly dramatic, didn't I? But sometimes when you care very deeply about a subject, that's what happens. So in review, we talked about what the King Gene is. It is a regal quality that can determine characteristics of an individual if they're willing to put in the work. We talked about the ad mentality. The ad mentality is accountability, discipline, determination. And then we talked about what is the intended impact of the podcast to promote positivity, and more specifically to promote positive masculinity or manhood, as you hear me refer to it. That's the thrust of the podcast. We want to be positive, but we want to identify negative aspects that could jeopardize a person's future and positive aspects that can push a person in the right direction. Okay? And then, as we talked about what you can expect from the podcast, each and every segment, I'm working hard so that you can expect to see a balanced view of the subject at hand. But then also, if at all possible, can we pull something positive out of this particular subject that can help you? And then we talked about the young subscriber that I felt a personal debt to. And I paid that debt through just showing empathy and fellow feeling. I paid that debt by giving him words of encouragement to build him up, to let him know that he can continue, that there's no situation in life that can cause him to give up as if he has the proper determination in that particular instance. So, as I mentioned, I'm not going to hold you too long. I hope that you enjoyed the podcast for this particular evening. I will say one thing, though. I will say one thing in closing. The responsibility of being honest, of being forthright, the responsibility of helping individuals to understand what they can accomplish in life is a large responsibility. Granted, I'll give you that. But as more individuals come into this space, hopefully, there'll be more individuals that are speaking out about positivity. There are more individuals that are speaking out about doing things the right way the first time so that you never have to come back to them. Well, thank you for tuning in. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Be easy.